Morocco has prevailed for decades as one of the most exotic tourist destinations in Africa. And it's not just because of its characteristic landscapes, picturesque desert towns, and large markets coveted by tourists, but also because of its exquisite cuisine and cultural offerings that leave more than one person amazed. Morocco has a rich Hispanic past, but does it still preserve this legacy today? Does Spanish have a promising future in this country? Or on the contrary, is it doomed to disappear? Let's answer these questions below. First, we have to understand why there is a presence of the Spanish language in Morocco today. Although the current multilingual situation in Morocco has been shaped by multiple cultural, political, and administrative factors, we would have to go back to the beginning of the modern age, when Muslims were definitively expelled from Spain after the so-called War of Granada. In the years 1420 to 1492, these Muslims went on to occupy the territories of Northwest Africa, which already had a rich millennia-old history, marked by Phoenicians and various Berber dynasties. It should be noted that in the year 1415, the city of Ceuta, in the north of present-day Morocco, was conquered by the Portuguese. But in the year 1640, when the separation between Spain and Portugal took place, the inhabitants of Ceuta decided on their own to belong to the Spanish crown, rejecting King Juan IV of Portugal as their king, since their ties with the Hispanic monarchy were much stronger throughout the centuries. On the other hand, Spain had also carried out its own conquest in the city of Melilla, not far from Ceuta, which it conquered in the year 1497 under the command of Don Pedro de Estopiñán, thus incorporating it into the Kingdom of Castile. For this reason, Ceuta and Melilla have remained as enclaves of Spanish sovereignty on the African continent, currently established as autonomous cities, which are Spanish metropolitan territories. That is to say, Ceuta and Melilla are the same as other Spanish cities, like Malaga, Huesca, or Sevilla, despite the constant claims by the Moroccan government, which have always been unsuccessful and lack political basis, since these enclaves have belonged to Spain long before the formation of the current Moroccan state in 1956, or even before the proclamation of a properly Moroccan kingdom. Starting from the Alawite dynasty, which was founded in 1631, and is the dynasty that still survives today. Before continuing, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and activate the bell to receive notifications of new videos. But going back to the story again. During the 18th and 19th centuries, North Africa was heavily shaken, and many of its states succumbed to Ottoman, French, or British domination. However, the aforementioned Alawite dynasty managed to maintain Morocco's independence during these centuries. But maintaining Moroccan stability in the 19th century was not an easy task, since the weakening of the Ottoman Empire made it increasingly difficult to control North Africa, resulting in numerous pirate attacks carried out from the Mediterranean, at the same time as the so-called War of Africa between Spain and the Sultanate of Morocco took place in 1859, in which different Moroccan groups from the Rif region sought to take over the cities of Ceuta and Melilla. The war ended in 1860 with the Spanish victory and the signing of the Treaty of Wadras, in which Spain, in addition to receiving financial compensation for the war, also received the territory around the fort of Santa Cruz de la Mar Pequeña, which had been established on the Atlantic coast during the time of Isabella the Catholic. This territory was later renamed Ifni, while France was carrying out its colonial expansion in Algeria. Spain established its settlement in the region of Western Sahara, also known as Spanish Sahara, in an agreement between the European powers in the so-called Scramble for Africa. With this, the Spanish presence in the western region of the Maghreb was increased. As the years went by, conflicts between the powers to colonize Africa began to grow. This led Germany to also seek control over Morocco. This brought them into conflict with France, which had already shown intentions to control the area. This situation ended in 1906 at the Algeciras Conference, where the Moroccan territory was assigned to a Spanish protectorate in the north, in the Rif region, in an area known as Cape Juby to the south, on the border with the already established colony of Spanish Sahara and a French protectorate in the central and southern zones, which was later ratified in the Treaty of Fez in 1912. This situation would benefit the Moroccan Sultanate at that time, since it had already lost control over the region's economy. For this reason, despite the protectorates, Morocco still retained sovereignty over the area. But in practice, it was the European powers that exercised real control over the administration. European colonization, behind the facade of the protectorates, was not well received by many groups in the Rif region who rose up in rebellion, sparking the Rif War from 1911 to 1927. In the end, European control prevailed, managing to overthrow the self-proclaimed Republic of the Rif. The French protectorate focused mainly on mining exploitation in its region, although it did improve the transportation and agricultural systems. But the Moroccans, seeing their progressive marginalization, decided to form the Moroccan Action Committee, which guaranteed the employment of Moroccans in government positions, and to regain some of the lost control. After World War II, and with the significant weakening of France, Sultan Mohammed V began negotiations for independence with the French government. This was consolidated in 1956 when France officially renounced the protectorate. Negotiations with Spain were conducted separately, resulting in the cession of the protectorate in the Rif in April 1956 and the region of France-Cabo Hubi in 1958. Later, on June 30, 1969, Spain would hand over the region of Ifni, thus completing its final withdrawal from Moroccan territory. On the other hand, the Moroccans began the invasion of the Spanish Sahara region with the so-called Green March, with logistical support from the United States. This culminated in the so-called Tripartite Agreement, as part of the United Nations' program for the decolonization of Africa, through which Spain, Morocco, and Mauritania assumed temporary administration of the Spanish Sahara. Before that, it was a Spanish colony, but soon Spain would withdraw its political interests from this region, and as a consequence, the Sahrawis, who were the indigenous inhabitants of Western Sahara, formed the Polisario Front and proclaimed the Sahrawi Republic, triggering the Western Sahara War, expelling the Mauritanians in 1979, but without recognition from the Moroccan government, a conflict that persists even to this day. All this history helps us have a better perspective on why Spanish is spoken in certain parts of Morocco. But can we take for granted that Spanish is a language with a future in the current government? While it's true that Spanish was the predominant language in the north during the time of the Protectorate, after the country's independence, there has been a dramatic decline in Spanish speakers throughout the region in favor of French and, more recently, English. The official languages of Morocco are Classical Arabic and Berber. However, the most widely spoken language among the people is Moroccan Arabic, which is a dialectal variety of Classical Arabic. French, since the time of the Protectorate, achieved a privileged position in Moroccan society and became the language of administration and education. Since almost all compulsory education is given in Arabic and French, French is also considered today as a language of status and communication with the West. In Morocco, although recently young Moroccans have been more attracted to learning English for obvious reasons of globalization, the Spanish government is currently making significant financial efforts to preserve Spanish in Morocco by opening branches of the Cervantes Institute in various parts of the country. However, the high cost of these courses means that most of the population does not have access to these resources. In addition to this, over the last few decades, the decline in the number of Spanish students at universities has been considerable. And although some multinational companies see Spanish as a plus on the resumes of Moroccans, it is not a determining factor for their hiring, as is the case lately with French and English. Added to this, the current Moroccan government is not making any effort to maintain Spanish. That's why, if immediate and effective actions are not taken to preserve the language, in the coming decades we could be witnessing the complete extinction of Spanish in the Kingdom of Morocco. This is a situation that Moroccan Hispanists are urgently bringing to the world's attention through numerous publications and the media. However, the Spanish language is still alive in certain regions of the Rif, in the former colony of Ifni, and in a large part of Western Sahara. But it survives in a critical way, since Moroccans prefer to study French or English as a second language, and prompt attention and clear government policies are needed for its reintroduction and preservation. Only time will determine the fate of this language, which is now a minority in this region of the world. And that's all for today. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to this channel. I also invite you to activate the bell so you'll be notified when there's a new video. See you soon.